Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Hey, Owen. Good to see you. Thanks, everyone, for joining. I'm just going to open it up or give some opening remarks and then hand it over to the real experts in the room. But I wanted to take a moment to, I've been mayor for a year and a few months now. And over that time, I've seen just so clearly how much the American Red Cross impacts our community in many different ways. They are oftentimes the first group that is there to help support families that have lost sometimes almost everything in a fire. Families that are in some cases, their worst moment that they've ever experienced in life, and there to support in those families, both emotionally and with resources to help get them through. But beyond that, they're doing many other things to help ensure the safety, education, and support in our community. And that's everything from going door to door to talk about vaccines and make sure that people have the information and support they need to get the vaccines, to ensuring that education happens in the home to avoid fires. And today they're going to talk about the work that they're doing on the educational front. That is a creative way to make sure that people receive that education in a time of a pandemic. I'm grateful for their work and support and partnership with our city. I don't know what we would do without you. And I'm looking forward to many more years of that partnership and hearing more about your program today. So I'll hand it over to the Red Cross.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone for joining us here on this call. We are so pleased and proud to be a partner and true partner with the City of New Haven across all of our lines of service, and the education component is a critical piece of it. We've had such strong working relationships and mutual respect for the people that we work with and for the residents and those that we serve in the community. So far in 2021, in the midst of a pandemic, we've helped over 110 individuals within the City of New Haven. And part of that is our response to the home fires that are occurring basically each and every day and night throughout the year. And our volunteer teams are out there working hand in glove, literally, with our fire department in New Haven and with the emergency management director and his team. And we're pleased and honored to do that. People don't realize that they have only about 2 minutes to get out when the fire alarm goes off in their house or the smoke alarm. And that's a stark reality from what people perceive their opportunity to be. And when we get them, in many cases, after a fire has occurred, and as the mayor said, the worst day of the year, it's amazing to think that the only thing that they may have is whatever they left in their car or their truck that very day. Their clothing, their personal possessions, their keepsakes, all of that, their furniture, all of that could be gone. So we want to help people prepare for that. We are sounding the alarm for this month, and we will continue to do so in the community through May 8th to educate people about home fire preparedness. And we want to do it in kind of a modern way. Given the pandemic, this is something we would traditionally be able to do going door to door. And we've done that many times in the City of New Haven, in the communities that are near and dear to everyone's hearts. And we want people to be educated on what their steps are and to come up with a plan for their individual household. So we're using the virtual environment to do that this year. And we've kicked off a Prepare-A-Thon that will continue through May 8th. And people can go to our website, which you see on the bottom of the screen, and they can sign up to receive education. And they could also volunteer in their own community to help educate others. These are two key factors. The community knows where the need is. They know who's most vulnerable. We always encourage people in times of disaster or preparing for disaster to check on their neighbors, that senior that lives next door, or the family with a single mom, or just their neighbor that they see on the street every day. Make sure everyone in the community is prepared for this. And we are strongly encouraged by the response that we've received in the New Haven community. And as the mayor said, we recently helped with the vaccine canvassing in some of the neighborhoods, and the response on the street was overwhelmingly positive, and people showing off their stickers that they received the vaccine. And we're so honored to be able to be part of that program, and we'll be part of that again on May 8th as this home fire education Prepare-A-Thon concludes. We will also be continuing in partnership with the city on the canvassing amplification in those neighborhoods where it will do the most good. So we thank the mayor and Chief Austin, Rick Fontana, the emergency management director, for all of their support and their professionalism in allowing us to deliver services, mostly through our volunteers. And this is Volunteer Appreciation Week. So I'd like to, it's my privilege to be able to introduce Tracy Shear, one of our leadership volunteers who is out there responding to fires either virtually or deploying. She is an expert in planning responses now for the Red Cross, and we're privileged to have Tracy on board with us. And Tracy, thank you for your service. And if you want to just talk about the experience that you've had as a Red Cross volunteer.
Sure, I've had the opportunity to be a Red Cross volunteer for over 2 years now. And I joined because I wanted some hands-on experience. I've done a lot of volunteer work in my day, but I really wanted something hands-on where I would actually connect with people and do something firsthand. I volunteer mostly to respond to disasters. And I've been to tornadoes. I've responded to tornadoes and hurricanes and wildfires. But what most people don't realize is that home fires are the most common disaster that the Red Cross responds to. My first home fire, I went as a trainee, and I could not believe the devastation that I saw. I was shocked. I have never been to the site of a home fire. This was in New Haven. There had been a fatality. There were 12 people living in the house. I think there were 5 families in the home. Everything was destroyed. The people who left the house they were lucky if they had grabbed their cell phone or their wallet. And people were sitting out on the street. It was getting dark. The firefighters were still working. And the scene is one of such sadness and devastation. And it's great. I really love being there and being there for other home fires and helping. I like the fact that we're able to offer comfort and provide financial assistance and toiletries and stuffed animals and blankets to the families. But it really brings home the importance of doing the prevention. For every fire that we can stop, we can save so much misery. And it's really not that complicated. It's so important to make sure you have smoke detectors. Check those smoke detectors. I didn't know that if they're 10 years old, they need to be replaced because the sensors don't work after 10 years. Simple things like keeping your eye on your cooking and not leaving things on the stove. I can't tell you how many fires I've been to where people have just had something cooking. They walked out of the kitchen for a few minutes and boom, it happens so fast. And it's really important for us to educate people so that we can prevent some of these terrible fires. I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing both, responding to fires, but even more so preventing them, because I know that we're saving people through some really terrible days in their lives. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from Red Cross, or should we hand it over to Chief Alston and Rick?
I think if we could hear from the chief and Rick, they are the experts that we deal with every day. So appreciate them.
Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to the Red Cross members that are assembled, Tracy, Richard, Neil, and Jocelyn. I cannot, and shout out to Mario Bruno as well. I cannot thank you enough for the partnership and the service that you provide, not only to the New Haven City residents and visitors, but to the firefighters as well. It's good to see you out there because we're dealing with the emergency and the tragic side of trying to suppress the fire and make rescues and try to return whatever normalcy we can to that neighborhood and to that family and to that structure. But the psychological trauma, the despair that we see on people's faces that we may not be able to treat or act on immediately, you're there. And people will say, why the Red Cross? The Red Cross responds to 74,000 calls for help in disasters a year. 93% of them are home fires or related fires. So people will say, well, why wouldn't a large organization respond to that? Well, even in small instances, a home fire is a disaster. It is a disaster to that family, that neighborhood, that community. And so when you respond to those, we greatly appreciate all of the efforts. It's not just a warm cup of coffee and a blanket. We used to always joke in the old days, oh, I had an old Red Cross blanket I had in the car and I brought it out to an accident. No, you respond with financial assistance. You respond with counseling and comfort, and that's important. And you did mention about the information that can prevent fires. It's one thing to respond to a fire. It's another not to have the fire happen at all. And so this important program that you're introducing and announcing today is critical because we do know that more than 85% of the fires that we respond to are preventable. The data is there. It's cooking or cooking related. It is improperly discarded smoking materials. It's candles. It's children left alone. So if we know if it's predictable, it's preventable. And so I just want to share the last thing on the 2 minutes. 2 minutes is not a lot of time in a fire. Unfortunately, I've even had friends and family who smelled smoke in their building who would call me at home and say, I think I smell smoke in my house. Well, get out. And if you're smelling smoke and I don't hear a smoke alarm, that's telling me that you don't have a smoke alarm in your home that's active and working. So it's so important that this program now raises our awareness of the resources that are there, but I would encourage people, please, sign up for the information. The information is important, but also sign up to be a person or a volunteer that will give out that information as well. And I'll stop with that because, you know, if it's talking fire, I could talk to you all retired. Thank you.
Rick?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Chief, and of course, Red Cross. You know, you've done so much work for the city, and as I see Tracy with her red vest on, you know, nothing more comforting than at 3 o'clock in the morning and seeing those red vests coming down the street. And I think Rich, you made mention that people grab their cell phone and maybe their wallet. On many occasions, they can't get either of those, and we try our best to get them back in as soon as possible once the fire is out and the salvage and overhaul have been taken care of. Folks, this is a time where you've retooled. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, we were doing you know, home visits. We were hanging we were hanging smoke detectors. And Rich Brannigan's team was always in competition to see who can get more smoke detectors into homes. And ultimately, that saves lives. And you guys have reshifted this year because of a pandemic. Now we're doing preparedness without going into the home. And if we can do a little bit of fire education and to help save lives, there's nothing worse than pulling up to a fatal fire. It's devastating. And really for us, the work that you continue to provide, you know, our partnership, and, you know, if anyone is listening, really think about becoming a Red Cross volunteer. They do great work. There are so many different, their disaster assistance team is one that is out at, doesn't have to be out at 2 or 3 in the morning, could be doing preparedness work, could be doing education. So, you know, become a volunteer. The Red Cross is just one of our biggest and best partners. And again, number one, helping to save lives. And thank you for continuing the life safety work, the fire prevention work, and taking care of so many people who are at the worst moment in their lives when that house fire occurs, and helping to prevent that is going to be key. So thank you for saving the lives that you save, and the help that you provide for those people in the darkest moments. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rick. Unless there's no other comments from the folks here, are there any questions from the press? Go ahead, Owen.
Yeah, just a couple numbers questions first. Mr. Alston, you noted like 85% of fires being preventable. Is that a statistic just nationwide, or is that a New Haven specific thing for this department?
Sure, it's nationwide. You can go to nfpa.org. It's the National Fire Protection Association. They track that information, and the United States Fire Administration.
Great. And then on the slide, it said 115 individuals in the city assisted by the Red Cross for fire-related things in 2021. Is there a similar statistic for last year by any chance?
I would defer to the Red Cross for their records.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, for Mr. Brannigan or someone else.
Oh, and I think we can get you that information. What we've seen across our network is about a 40% increase in our home fire responses, which has been challenging indeed because of the pandemic restrictions. We've had to switch to a in-person response to basically hand over the financial instruments, and a virtual response to assist the family through whatever means is possible to meet them where they are, virtually or otherwise.
Perfect. And then just last question about the switch to virtual. How are you expecting this to kind of impact the level of engagement and amount of people you're able to train and have this process work for, compared to when it's been in person in the past?
I think this will be interesting to see what the results might be. Handling it virtually, we can reach far more people than we can even in canvassing a neighborhood with our teams of volunteers, as Mr. Fontana was referring to. Going door to door, it has its values because you have a face-to-face conversation, and you're educating people in their own home and helping them come up with their own safety plan for evacuation and so forth. So very effective, but it is time consuming. And if we could train more people virtually than we can, it's all about saving lives the best way we can. And people are getting a little bit more comfortable with the virtual environment and receiving the information. But there are some priorities that they need to focus on. Whatever plan they come up with for their families, they need to rehearse that plan and practice it. They need to have a gathering spot. They need to understand that once they leave their home, whatever that home is, whether it's an apartment building or a single family house or two family, it doesn't matter. They can't go back in, whether it be for pets or belongings or any of those things. So there are some basics that we want to raise awareness on. And then we want people to take additional training and to take responsibility for their own family and personal resilience. And that includes preparedness training. That includes looking around and being prepared for the next big event that comes. We will have another hurricane that comes through. We will have other disasters that affect the community. So the same types of skills and experience and training that people have for home fire applies for being without electricity for a week for a hurricane that comes through their community. So we want people to take that responsibility, to take whatever trainings they can, virtually or otherwise, and then look for other ways to build resilience in the community. They can step up and take a CPR or first aid course, or they can donate blood to help the community. There's a number of things that we will be encouraging through this process, and we want to make sure that people are taking care of themselves and their households and the community around them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Richard, you'd mentioned something. I would be remiss if I did not address this, all of us. During the pandemic, people are afraid or apprehensive, not only about getting the vaccinations, but about donating blood. The process of donating blood through the Red Cross is a safe process, and it is a vetted process. And during the pandemic, their reserves have been low. So if you're a person who has volunteered to give blood in the past, please continue to do so. And if you've never thought about doing it before, it's a wonderful way to serve your community and save a life.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
just like to put in a pitch for renters insurance. Many of the homes we respond to are rental homes, and many of the residents are not protected by renters insurance. Many people think that it's expensive or that they can't afford it. Actually, renters insurance is among the most reasonable insurance you can have. People underestimate how much it will cost to replace everything in their home. But when you count up all the clothing and the furniture and the pots and pans and all the things in your house, it really makes sense if you can possibly do it to have renters insurance. It's one thing that people can do in preparation along with their fire safety steps to protect their family.
Are there any other questions from the press? All right, thanks again to the Red Cross team and Chief Alston and Rick for all your work. We'll see you all soon.